Welcome everybody to Applied Psychology. This is a relatively new course. We have been doing it now for the last couple of years. We have this year in year 13 about 17 students. So it's really popular and remains part of the psychology and sociology department. So we have BTEC psychology, we have A-level psychology, and we also do sociology. So that's our sort of family, if you like. And I'm just going to take you through some of the details of the course, and there's lots of links that you can go away and have a look at. We have our Teams group, so I hope you've been on there, and I've put the transition task up there as well for you to have a go. Obviously, with all courses, we'll have a code of conduct, and you can read this yourself. Nothing is different to the general rules of the sixth form. However, what you will notice in A-level and at sixth form is that a lot of the expectation is on you now. You've got to be a lot more independent. You've got to be a lot more proactive. You need to communicate a lot with your teachers via email, Teams, and just really taking responsibility for your own learning, completing all the work, meeting deadlines, all of those things. And they won't be different from subject to subject. They are the expectations of the sixth form, but it is a step up from year 11. You will find that your teachers have a high expectation of you. So the department is actually myself and Miss Makwana. Miss Makwana is the head of department, head of psychology and sociology, and myself and Miss Makwana teach the BTEC. So Miss Gendel is also part of our department, and if you study sociology or psychology, you'll have Miss Gendel, but the BTEC is shared between myself and Miss Makwana. So that's why our email addresses are there. Please come and talk to us, email us if you want more details. Psychology is a really popular subject. It's been in the sixth form for a number of years. The BTEC is a new course, but psychology is really, really popular. So well done on choosing it. It's a fantastic subject. You just keep learning and learning in psychology. And if you are the type of student that likes to question everything and you have a real interest in human behaviour, then this course is right for you. However, it is a science subject, so you've got to be aware of that. And yes, we're talking about human behaviour, and yes, we're looking at lots of really interesting topics like addiction and offender profiling, but it's taken from the view of a scientist. We will have to use data, we will have to be looking at experiments and evaluating experiments, and you luckily will get to carry out experiments as well, which is amazing. And part of your course will be to conduct research. So you are a scientist in many ways. The course is BTEC at Excel, and you can go and have a look. There's a link here, and you can look at the specification for lots of details. This is just a brief outline just to give you an idea, okay? The extended certificate there is the one that you'll all be aiming for, which is a level 3, an equivalent to an A-level. And you have to do 4 units, and 3 of those are mandatory, so you have to complete them in order to complete the course. So if you have a look at the little table, you'll see that we have psychological approaches and applications, which is mandatory and really important because they're the basis of psychology. You then also have conducting psychological research, again mandatory, and that is the coursework element there, where you will be planning a pilot study, conducting a pilot study, and then evaluating your own skills and experience as a researcher. It also looks at the purpose behind research and what's important about it as well. Psychological approaches and applications, again, is mandatory, and that is you're examined in that through exams. Health psychology, again, is a mandatory unit, exam-based for the assessment there. And then there's a choice of, you have one optional unit you can do. So we have chosen for you criminal and forensic psychology because A, it's fascinating. B, from teaching A-level psychology, which they also study forensics, students really enjoy this unit. It's accessible, it's relevant to the world, and it's really, really interesting. So we're getting inside the minds of criminals. We're looking for the reasons why people commit crimes. And then we're also looking at treatments and thinking about how we can help criminals and how we can improve, possibly manipulate or change their behaviour. Again, health psychology is looking at things like stress, addiction, and the theories around that. Again, from a very scientific perspective as well. One of the things you'll notice in psychology that for every type of behaviour, criminal behaviour, addictive behaviour, there is always a biological argument for why people do what they do. And then there's always a social argument. And then there might be a personality theory as well. So your job will be to look at all of these aspects of behaviour and evaluate them and look at the evidence. So again, that's where the science comes into this, you evaluating evidence, looking at, asking questions, looking for the flaws in experiments, etc. So quite a lot of content, a lot to do. This coursework is really demanding, I'll be honest. I teach the coursework unit, have done for the last 2 years, and it is really demanding. You know, the amount of research methods that you need to know and understand, you know, is, as I said, quite demanding. But you get to carry out practical research, which is something the A-level students don't get to do, actually. And I think it's really important. I think it's really good to be able to practically carry out an experiment. So that's the course briefly. And that's just the units again broken down so you can see the optional, etc. But as I said, most of you will be going towards the extended certificate, and you'll have your mandatory units and then your one optional, which at the moment is criminal and forensic psychology. And on the side there you can see external and internal, and what that means really is whether it's an exam or whether it's coursework. So psychological approaches and applications is mandatory, and also it's assessed externally by an exam. The conducting research is mandatory, but again is internally assessed. So your teachers will mark your coursework and verify it, but it will be moderated by an external moderator as well. Health psychology is external. So again, you've got the exam, and then the last unit there, criminal forensic psychology, is internally assessed, externally moderated, and again, that will be coursework based. These couple of pages here just go through the units in a little bit more detail. Okay, so for example, tells you how long the exam is and how many marks it is and when it's available. So there are resits available, or have been in the past certainly. Unit 2 there, a little bit more detail about the psychological investigation and the skills that you will need for that. So we spend a little bit of time understanding and preparing for the research methods, but the best experience is actually carrying out research. Unit 3 then you can see is the external again, assessment, 2-hour examination. Quite a lot of content in health psychology, quite detailed, as I said, interesting content, but again from a science perspective. Okay, now you've probably seen assessment objectives before from GCSE, and there's a range really in your BTEC and A-level. Um, you know, there are the questions that look at you demonstrating your knowledge, so that's usually AO1, so the describing, the outlining, and they tend to make up the smaller amount of marks. And then you've got your AO2, which is your kind of application, and you demonstrating an understanding of the theories outside of maybe the content. So the link between psychological assumptions, again, scenario questions, things like that. And then the third one is AO3, which is the evaluation. Okay, and often in your exam, certainly up to 9 marks, this is your compare, your discuss, and again, you bringing contemporary examples and relevant issues into, so applying your knowledge of psychology, but also the real world. And that's one of the other things that you'll notice about studying psychology, which is that it's all around you, and you will become so much more aware of people's motivations and behaviour when you study psychology. It's really, really interesting. But also you'll be able to use examples from your own experiences, from the world, from the news. So you need to be that student who is reading all around you all of the time and linking psychology to the content that you've learned. Okay, so we give you a textbook, we loan you a textbook, and obviously if you lose it, you pay for it. And that book really will be, you know, your Bible. We have revision guides as well available for you. But actually, the most important aspect of your psychology journey will be your folders and your notes. You need to be very, very organised. There's a lot of content in psychology. You will have 2 teachers teaching you different units, so you really need to have a folder that's, you know, separated into units, that's separated into coursework and assessments, that you bring your folder and your textbook to every lesson. So there's nothing more frustrating than that. We look at your folders, so we do spot checks, take your folders in, make sure that you've got everything in there. And we have sort of a list for you, really, of things that should be in your folder. We will give you a PLC at the beginning of each unit, so you know exactly what you need to have in that unit. You can highlight it, you can rag rate it, you know what components you need to have done. We'll have a key term booklet, and you'll be producing your own glossaries as well. Classwork separated by dividers. And then you'll have extended work, assessments kind of at the end of each unit, evidence of wider reading, so keeping newspaper articles, keeping things that you have used, and then obviously revision resources like flashcards and things like that. Lots of terminology in psychology. That's the other thing you're going to notice. Lots of terminology, lots of new words, and you really need to keep up with it. So apart from your folders and your textbook and your revision guide, we also have the shared drive. And that at the moment is up on Teams, but also on the shared area in school. And we'll put everything up there. So we'll have our PowerPoints up there that we might use, any resources that we share with you. And again, so you need to be very much accessing that on a regular basis. We'll have the specification up there. We'll be uploading everything that you need to do and keeping up to date. You know, Teams is great. We can send you notifications. Your assignments are recorded up there if you've viewed it, if you've uploaded it, and hopefully you've had an experience of that. Although as year 11s, you've probably had less of an experience of Teams than other year groups, but we will get you up to speed really, really quickly. And obviously your teachers are contactable by email, but also by popping in to see us. You know, don't leave things until the last minute. If you need an extension, if you need some support, just come and find us. We're always around to help. Obviously at the moment we're still using Show My Homework, and things will be put up there and also on Teams. So at the moment we're using both platforms, so there is no excuse, if you like, to miss any homeworks. You will be green slipped, you'll be aware or be made aware of the policy in Newman 6, and it's pretty unforgiving, to be honest. You know, collect some green slips and then there is a formal warning, letters home, parental meetings, etc. And so that's why the communication with your teacher is really important. So don't go off the grid, don't disappear. If you're falling behind, if you're a little bit stressed, you must come and see us, and then we can help you and support you in the best way. It's going to be a little bit daunting coming to the sixth form, even if you are a Newman student. It's different. You may have teachers that you've never had before. So, for example, I don't teach anybody under A level. I only teach year 12 and 13. So I won't have taught you before. Same with Miss Makwana. So, and you'll have, if you're studying law, there's lots of teachers that only teach sixth form. So that's different. And therefore we do have different expectations as well. And so it might be a little bit daunting, but what you've got to do is see this as part of your journey now, and you've got to engage with it and engage with us and be really positive about it. You know, that communication, looking at our feedback, you know, and really, really acting on that. We will always give you feedback, your strengths, your improvements, and you need to then look at the actions to make those improvements. You know, don't just look at the mark and think, oh, I didn't do very well. You know, psychology is going to be a brand new subject for you, brand new terminology. We're not expecting you to be hitting your target grade from week 2 at all. And it will be a process, and you will get better and better and better at psychology as you go along. But keep the communication open, do the work. You do need to revisit your psychology weekly, daily. Every time you have a psychology lesson, you're going home and you are going back over that material, because otherwise, as you'll learn from psychology, your memory just isn't up to keeping all that content there without reviewing it. Okay, so that's really, really important. So it is really starting as you mean to go on. If you are, and if you talk to any of the current year 12s doing psychology, that's what they will tell you. Be organised from day one. It is really about organisation. It's hard work. There's lots of things to support you in psychology, but actually you being organised and your attendance to lessons is going to be key. Keywords, you know, have that glossary up to date, have a flashcard, have your definitions, you know, actually use the language. So don't just have a whole long list of words, actually start using them and in the right context. And it's amazing how you will suddenly have a language of psychology. And I love it when students start using terminology in their writing and suddenly you're really confident about it. Revision notes, mind maps, whatever it is that works for you. But that's when you'll get to the exams and think, oh gosh, I need to sit and do all these tables. If you're doing them all the way along, and we will be prompting you to do that, then it is much easier. Studies, lots of key studies and lots of research, and you know it can be difficult to remember them all. So you must have you know, an APF of each study and the evaluation points. So what was the aim, what was the procedure, and what were the findings of those studies? The detail then will come back to you once you've got your prompt. So bullet points, key concepts, strengths and criticisms. A big aspect of psychology is evaluation, and you elaborating on what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, what was the evidence like. So that's really, really important as well. Additional reading. So there's a whole list there of you know, where psychology is elsewhere, and you will have come across it. You know, literature is covered with psychology, television programs, you know, psychology is everywhere. And so keep a list. It's a good way of looking at and appreciating where psychology is in the world. So I would encourage you always to read. That will help you with your psychology as well. lots of websites. So the BPS is the British Psychological Society. You can have a look in there, go to the ethical guidelines, really interesting to see what the ethics are in psychology. Simply Psychology is a really popular site for students. Tutor for You as well. You've got, lots and lots of resources out there that can help you with quizzes and support your learning. Obviously, you have to be really careful that you are not using those sites in order to plagiarize or anything like that. But we're very good at spotting that. So this is to support your learning more than anything else. So you could have a play around with those before you come back. That would be great. All in the Mind on Radio 4 is great. And you get the podcast of all of those. They're all available on iPlayer and our BBC Sounds. And a lot of the topics they're discussing are those that are on the syllabus. People to follow on Twitter, have a look, Psych Central, Research Digest, Tutor for You again, British Psychological Society. There's lots out there. And that's one of the things you'll find with psychology. There's a lot of psychology in our world. So they're the top tips, really. Please email myself, Mrs. Fay, or Miss McWanna in Newman to ask any questions. But I really do encourage you to go on to the Teams link, have a look at the transition task, have a go. But email us if you need any support with that. We do expect you to come back with the transition task, coming back into Newman 6. We will be marking them and feeding back on them, so they are really, really important. And actually, that will give us an indication of what kind of student you're going to be as well, so that's really important. Okay, that's all for now. It's a bit strange doing it like this and not seeing your faces and not being able to answer your questions. But welcome to Newman 6. You'll have a great time. Work hard. Be productive, communicate with your teachers, and looking forward to seeing you in September.